The president said she belonged in jail. Jasmine Crockett picked up a highlighter, went live, and by the next morning, half the country was watching. The briefing room was not full, but the air felt tight, as if the walls were pressing in. Reporters leaned forward, pens ready like tools. Cameras flickered under strong lights. Inside the White House press room, everything felt heavier than normal. President Trump approached the podium. His expression was tense, and his voice sharp. He was clearly frustrated. Something in his tone made everyone alert this was not going to be a typical briefing. He glanced at his notes, skipped the formal intro, and jumped straight into the message. Without naming her right away, he began talking about a radical member of Congress. According to him, she had supported rebellion and spread false claims about his executive order that he said aimed to help minority voters. Soon enough, he named, heard slowly and clearly, Jasmine Crockett. He said she should be investigated for sedition. Frankly, he added, she should be jailed. The room fell quiet, like a door had just slammed shut. Some reporters looked around, unsure. Others began typing fast. The president had just called for a sitting congresswoman to be imprisoned for criticizing him. A reporter asked, Mr. President, are you saying you'll ask the DOJ to act? Trump interrupted, we're looking into it. She's dangerous. She's dividing the country when we need unity. People like that cannot say anything they want without facing consequences. Behind him, some staff looked uneasy. The tension was clear, not just among the press, but on the president's own team. Outside the room, the clip spread fast. Within 10 minutes, it was all over TikTok, Twitter, and YouTube. The headline under Trump's frozen image read, threatens jail for Crockett. In her Dallas office, Jasmine Crockett was already watching. Her team had sent her the video as soon as it went live. She stood behind her desk, arms folded, silently watching. Play it again, she said. Her chief of staff hit replay. She listened to it once more. Her face stayed the same. She did not pace or raise her voice, but something shifted inside her. This was no longer about political disagreements. It was a public effort to pressure her into silence, and she knew staying quiet would not stop it. Her press aide whispered, we need to respond. Jasmine nodded, we will, but not how they expect. Phones rang non-stop. CNN, MSNBC, even Fox wanted statements. On-air debates had already started. Some called Trump's remarks shocking. Others said Crockett was reckless and playing with race. By the end of the day, her name had come up in over 200 news segments. Talk radio played it on loop. Political Twitter was flooded. At a bar in Oklahoma City, a man watching muttered, they're going to jail her. A woman next to him replied, they're just afraid. Back in Dallas, Jasmine looked at her aide. We'll go live tomorrow. No media filter, just me. The aide nodded. Facebook, YouTube, Jasmine replied, all of it. She turned off the TV and called her mother. Mama, she said calmly, you saw it? Her mother's voice was a little shaky. I did. You okay? I'm fine, Jasmine said. But this is bigger than me now. Still, that was not what shocked the country. It was what she said the next day that changed everything. 3 days before, Jasmine Crockett had spoken in front of a small crowd at a courthouse in Fort Worth, Texas. She wore a gray blazer, black pants, and had a serious look. The posters behind her read, protect our vote and we remember Selma. No major media was there, just local reporters and a few organizers holding their breath. As she stepped up to the mic, the president's new executive order, she began, is not about making elections safe. It's about making voting harder. She paused, letting that settle. It targets cities with large Black and Latino voters. It moves polling places to areas that are hard to reach. And it gives more power to state officials who have already shown they are willing to manipulate districts. She did not shout. She didn't have to. Her words were clear and sharp. The executive order had been signed just a day before. On the surface, it was about improving election security, but in the details were rules limiting drop boxes, cutting early voting hours, and sending federal monitors into high-risk areas, a label that mainly applied to Black, Hispanic, and Native communities. Jasmine read the order line by line. Her background as a civil rights lawyer helped her catch what others missed: quiet, subtle tricks. One line stood out: if there is civic unrest or misinformation, voting stations may be moved to maintain order. She stared at that line for an hour. Then she said, they can move polling places out of Black neighborhoods if someone posts a fake rumor. That was not oversight, it was control. She shared her concerns with a trusted journalist, Ariana Liu of the Dallas Morning News. Ariana published the story that night. By the next morning, Jasmine's speech outside the courthouse had started spreading. It was not front-page news yet, but it was gaining traction. Political TikTok picked it up. Law professors reposted it. Civil rights groups began issuing concerns. But Jasmine did not stop. She called for a public review of the order and started organizing with other lawmakers. Representatives Owen Jeffries from Michigan and Lena Serrano from Arizona quietly joined her. A coalition was forming. They met virtually the night before Trump's press briefing. Jasmine sat at her kitchen table with a laptop and notes. Owen looked tired. Lena looked furious. "We won't get the Senate unless something major happens," Owen said. "Then we make it major," Jasmine replied. "Not with noise, with facts." That was when she shared what she had found to leaked emails from a Justice Department insider. One told attorneys to follow the president's lead on polling locations. The other mentioned Jasmine by name, calling her a growing threat to administrative unity. She had not shared them yet. She wanted to be careful. But after Trump's press conference, she made her choice. That order was not about safety, she would later say in a live stream. It was about stopping certain people from voting, and the emails prove it. But at the time, most people only knew that a congresswoman had been publicly threatened by the president. Some were scared, some were curious, but others saw something. They recognized suppression, not by violence, but by maps and rules. Jasmine Crockett was not just reacting. She was preparing to speak louder than anyone expected. At 9:08 a.m. the next day, she went live on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and X. No special effects, no music, just her, at a plain desk in her district office. She wore a navy blouse, minimal makeup, and had her hair pulled back. She looked calm, not shaken. "Good morning," she began. "I want to speak directly to the people who elected me and to anyone asking why the president just threatened me." Fewer than 1,000 people watched at first, mostly locals. But within minutes, that number passed 10,000. Midway through, more than 500,000 were tuned in. "I am not scared," she said, "but I am angry, and you should be too." She leaned closer, her voice steady. "The president said I should be jailed for inciting unrest. Let me tell you what I really did." She walked through it step by step, held up printed pages, highlighted the parts that worried her. "This part right here," she said, pointing to a clause, "gives them power to close a polling station in a black or brown neighborhood. If someone posts a fake tweet." She picked up her phone, shared her screen, showed the 2 emails, one from DOJ instructing support for the president's agenda, another calling her a problem. "This is not oversight. This is suppression," she said. "This is not about unity. It is about control." She never raised her voice. She spoke like someone who had thought long and hard about what was coming and was ready. "We are close to something dangerous," she said, looking into the lens, "and I am not backing down. I have faced worse than a man yelling on TV." A staffer behind the camera held up a time signal. 15 minutes had passed. She ended by addressing Trump. "You said I am dangerous. You're right, but not for the reasons you think. I am dangerous to lies. I am dangerous to silence. If you fear truth, good. I am not stopping." She ended the stream. Within an hour, #StandWithJasmine was trending everywhere. Civil rights groups reshared her video. Legal experts reviewed the order. College students reposted her message. Her inbox filled with offers of legal help and media interviews. But what stood out were the comments. A man from Ohio: "My grandmother was stopped from voting in 1962. I stand with you." A woman in Arizona: "I'm a mom of 2. I had no idea that line was in there. I'm sharing this." A teen in Minneapolis: "You made me care about politics today." Jasmine leaned back in her chair. No cheering, just a deep breath. Her aide looked over. "That was different." Jasmine turned to her. "Let's see who speaks next." But the public was not the only one watching. Inside the White House, the reaction was far from quiet. In a Boise coffee shop, a barista named Lacey replayed Jasmine's live stream on a tablet. While making drinks, customers leaned in to listen. An older man asked her to turn up the sound. A college student typed with wide eyes. A mother with a stroller whispered, "This can't be legal." When the video ended, nobody moved. Then someone clapped. It grew quietly until the whole shop joined in. In Santa Fe, New Mexico, a retired teacher named Gloria forwarded the clip to her former students. She wrote, "History's knocking. Pay attention." Within an hour, 20 replies came back, all with screenshots showing they had shared it. Online, #StandWithJasmine passed celebrity gossip and sports updates within hours. But it was not influencers who pushed it. It was everyday people: teachers, clerks, students. They shared it with short, direct messages. "My dad marched in Birmingham. I see the same tactics. Voting should not be a gamble. I don't follow politics, but threatening someone for speaking, no." Mainstream media rushed to catch up. MSNBC ran livestream clips between weather reports. CNN sent a producer to Dallas. A radio show in Montana opened with a segment titled "The Crockett Clash." In Lansing, Michigan, 200 people gathered outside the State House with handmade signs. "Dissent is not a crime. Protect the polls." No party banners, no megaphones, just voices chanting together. A reporter counted 8 pastors, 3 Vietnam veterans, and a few high school athletes still in sports gear. In Tallahassee, a law student named Kareem planned a candlelight walk around the old Capitol. He expected 30 classmates. Over 600 showed up. They walked slowly, candles glowing against the white stone columns. When a police cruiser drove by, no one left. They walked on, candles held high. Jasmine watched the footage from her office phone, resting on a water bottle. Her communications director, Patrice, leaned in. "They're everywhere," she whispered. Jasmine nodded. "Let them see each other." They did, in Eugene, Oregon. Handmade banners waved in live streams. In Shreveport, a drone showed people marching quietly downtown. In Bismarck, North Dakota, locals stood outside the courthouse reading parts of the Voting Rights Act out loud one at a time. TV commentators argued whether this was protest or resistance. One analyst warned of unrest. But on social media, the mood looked different. Families with kids, older couples, college bands playing. It felt less like a riot, more like people breathing together. But tensions were real. In Madison, a counter-protester waved a "lock her up" sign. A veteran shouted at a teen filming. Police kept them apart. But the clip still went viral. Cable shows ran it on loop. Back in Dallas, Jasmine drafted a thank you tweet, then paused. Instead, she posted, "Keep it peaceful, keep it loud, I see you. I'm not backing down." It got 200,000 likes in 30 minutes. Inside the West Wing, phones rang constantly. Aides tried to downplay the protests as small. The message didn't work. Governors, Republican and Democrat, started calling to ask if federal observers would show up in their states. The question alone was a problem. If observers were sent, it confirmed Jasmine's claims. If not, the order looked weak. In Rapid City, South Dakota, a truck driver saw the news scroll by. White House reviews response to Crockett protests. He put down his fork. "That's a first," he muttered. That night, civil rights lawyer Wilhelmina Banks appeared on local TV. In Memphis, she said clearly, "Intimidation only works if the target stays quiet." Congresswoman Crockett answered with sunlight, and sunlight spreads. The clip trended just under Jasmine's original video. By morning, petitions calling for the executive order to be suspended hit over 3 million signatures. The numbers surprised pollsters. Jasmine scrolled through names until her eyes hurt. Clerks from Utah, nurses from Iowa, a librarian from Illinois, people who rarely appeared in protest movements. Patrice walked in holding a folder filled with interview requests. "Everyone wants you today, tomorrow, yesterday." Jasmine set down her phone and rubbed her eyes. "Pick two, one local, one national. If we talk everywhere, we say nothing." Patrice hesitated. "Got it." But inside the White House, concern was turning into panic. Trump entered the Oval Office. 5 aides were already in a quiet standoff. Phones buzzed everywhere. One monitor showed a protest in St. Louis. Grandmothers with signs, kids handing out water bottles, a young boy with a poster. "Let her speak. Turn that off," Trump said without looking up. No one moved. He sat down, adjusted his tie, and pointed at his strategist Bennett Gorski. "Why is this still happening?" Bennett wiped sweat from his neck. "We thought it would pass. But her video, it went viral. We misjudged her." Trump rolled his eyes. "Just another Democrat screaming about race." "She didn't scream," said Karen Stroud, deputy communications director. "That's the problem. She was calm. She showed the order. She showed DOJ emails. She sounded reasonable." Trump leaned back, then hit her harder. There was silence. Rusk, the DOJ liaison, finally said, "That could backfire. We're already under pressure. There's talk of a DOJ internal review, and someone is leaking." "Find the leak," Trump snapped. "We're working on it," Bennett said quickly. Trump's phone buzzed. A news app notification. Crockett protests grow. Pressure mounts. He dismissed it. "She's one congresswoman. Why does it feel like we're losing the country too?" "A woman with a webcam?" No one replied. But behind the scenes, the political landscape was shifting. Several GOP governors had quietly asked if they had to enforce the voting restrictions. Some began sidestepping questions from the press. Senator Arnold Marr of Wyoming issued a vague statement, avoiding the executive order, saying only, "All Americans have the right to question executive power." In a side room, Gorski met privately with Stroud. "We need a new plan," she said. "And say what?" he asked. "Say the order was about safety. Blame confusion on her misreading it." "She didn't misread anything. She made it look that way. You watched her video. That woman has courtroom rhythm. You cannot out-yell that." In the Oval Office, Trump wanted another press conference. Legal advisor Von Little advised against it. "Sir, the first one is already being picked apart. Another will just make it worse." Trump insisted. "She lied. She made it political. The protests are fake." Press Secretary Dwight Reynolds looked uneasy. "Sir, maybe we should wait. Let it cool off." "I do not let things cool off," Trump replied. "I end them." He canceled his golf round and demanded more intel on Jasmine. "She's smart," Gorski said. "Civil rights lawyer, criminal defense, Texas state rep before Congress. No scandals. There's got to be something." "She is not afraid of you," Stroud said quietly. Trump heard her. "Then make her afraid." Stroud stayed quiet. The mood in the room chilled while they argued. A White House kitchen aide checked her phone. A text from her sister. Did you see the new video? The girl reading her grandma's voting card. She clicked. A teen from New Orleans read her grandmother's 1965 voter card. They told her she couldn't read, so she memorized the Constitution. The girl's voice shook. Now someone wants to take us back. The clip was already being edited with Jasmine's video her holding DOJ emails while the girl's voice played. It was reposted by celebrities, clergy, and even a retired federal judge. At that moment, Jasmine sat in her kitchen, stirring tea she was not drinking. She was not smiling, but she looked steady. Her calendar showed a media slot for 8 p.m. A national outlet that rarely called her had now called twice. She picked up the phone. "Let's talk," she said into the voicemail. "But I want 20 minutes. No commercials. We do this for real." That interview would not just be real. It would be the moment the country paid attention. The state line weekly studio was dim. The producers wanted a calm setting, not a shouting match. Jasmine Crockett sat across from Jonah Frank, a well-known journalist. He let guests speak, unless they dodged. His strength was his quiet questions. The show started with a single shot. No music, no montage, just Jonah leaning in. "Congresswoman," he said, "the president suggested you be jailed. Have you received any threats since?" Jasmine replied without hesitation. "Yes, some anonymous, some voicemails. They've been reported, but threats are not new for women who speak plainly." Jonah nodded. "You sparked protests. You shared DOJ emails. Let's get to it. Why was this order written like this?" Jasmine took a calm breath. "Because changing policy is harder than shifting 5,000 votes in 3 counties. She held up her marked-up copy of the order. "I am not guessing. I read it. I highlighted where they can move polling stations due to unrest. I highlighted where they call my response a disruption." They barely hid their intent. The camera cut to Jonah's reaction, then back to Jasmine. "It is not about me," she said. "It is about the people they are targeting, voters who still remember needing to recite the Constitution just to cast a vote." She turned to the second camera. "This is not paranoia. This is a pattern." Across the country, people paused, phones quieted. Even skeptics listened. In Kansas City, a 70-year-old man paused feeding his dog. He had never voted Democrat, but her tone made him stay. In Seattle, a teen called her grandmother. "You need to see this," she whispered. Jonah asked, "Do you fear the president may escalate?" "If I did," Jasmine said, "I would not have gone live. I would not be here." "What do you want to happen?" She paused. "3 things. Suspend the order, start a bipartisan review of election oversight, and remind people, silence does not protect. It just makes room for louder threats." Jonah closed his notes. "We asked the White House for comment. They declined." Jasmine gave a small smile. Asterisk, just barely. Of course. Right after the commercial break, the producers aired a 3-minute community montage. Clips of protests from across the country played. But it wasn't the images that struck viewers, it was the voices layered over them. A teacher from Fresno said, "My students watched her live stream in homeroom. That's what civic education looks like." A postal worker in Maine shared, "I'm white, 65, and I'm telling you this fight isn't hers alone." And from Jackson, Mississippi, a woman said, "I voted beside my mama in '94. We've never missed an election. If they move my polling place, I'll walk 2 hours to reach it." By the time the episode ended, Jonah Frank's team reported the second highest viewer engagement in the program's history. Only the post 9/11 special had drawn more. But the moment went beyond ratings. Senator Maxine Bell, a centrist Republican from Arizona, tweeted, "I may not agree with Representative Crockett on most policies, but arresting dissent is not who we are. I won't support this order." It wasn't a floodgate opening, but it was the first visible crack in the GOP wall. People noticed. The next morning, Jasmine's inbox overflowed, not with media requests, but with stories, hundreds, scanned letters, torn up voter IDs from the 1960s, notes from people who had never spoken out before. Patrice entered her office carrying a stack of printouts clipped together. "These are all from last night," she said. Jasmine took one, read it silently, then folded it. "They're not writing to me," she said quietly. "They're writing to whoever needs this next." But not everyone was inspired. Some saw a new opening to launch a counterstrike, and the smear campaign began. It started quietly: rumors, subtle posts, fringe headlines. Crockett funded by dark money extremist PACs. Read one. No sources, no citations, just recycled screenshots from past public donations. The truth didn't matter. Volume did. The static spread online. Right-wing podcasters called her a professional agitator. A cable host labeled her a planted character in a larger script. Social media chopped and twisted her words. One viral video falsely paired her remarks with protest footage she'd never been near. In her Dallas office, Jasmine scrolled silently. "Should we respond?" Patrice asked. "Not yet," Jasmine said. "Let them burn to their fuel." Attacks grew bolder. Someone spray-painted "traitor" over a billboard. With her face in her district, a conservative radio show in Raleigh ran a full segment demanding her law license be re-examined. A sheriff in Alabama posted that she should be investigated for undermining democracy. Then came the messages: go back to law school. You're not MLK, you're a fraud. We know where your office is. That one triggered a call to Capitol Police. Security protocols were upgraded. Night shifts rotated. Lights stayed on, no dark corners, no guessing. But Jasmine didn't flinch. She kept answering emails, reviewing legislation, meeting with organizers. She showed up on camera not to fight back, but to clarify. In one brief video posted to her official account, she looked into the camera and said, "If I'm being attacked for reading the law, what does that say about the law? And what does it say about those attacking me?" The clip drew over 4 million views in less than 24 hours. Still, the narrative war escalated. Her speaking fees, her old court cases, even her fashion choices were dissected. One post zoomed in on her earrings during a broadcast, claiming they were extremist symbols. They weren't. They were from a black-owned boutique in Baton Rouge. When Patrice showed her the post, Jasmine laughed. "They're $18 hoops," she said. "The only extreme thing is the markup." But underneath her humor was exhaustion. "You're holding up better than I thought," Patrice said one day, handing her a thermos of soup. "I'm not here for comfort," Jasmine replied. "I'm here for clarity. The truth doesn't get tired." That evening, a letter arrived, handwritten in cursive, on yellowed stationery. It was from Geneva Bryant, 93, in Savannah, Georgia. "When I was 22, I tried to register to vote and was told I couldn't read. I recited Article 1 of the Constitution from memory. They still turned me away. Don't stop, Jasmine, I see you." Jasmine kept that letter in her purse from then on. Then the tide shifted again. A non-profit in Milwaukee published a report exposing the smear campaign's roots line by line. A coalition of fact-checkers released a joint debunking of 5 top lies targeting her. Civil rights lawyers began speaking on her behalf. But the real turn came from an unexpected voice: Senator Charles Brantley, a deeply conservative lawmaker from South Dakota. Live on air, he said, "I don't align with Congresswoman Crockett's politics, but arresting her for reading a public document, that's not democracy. If we jail dissent, we don't deserve the flag. We salute." That clip ran on loop for hours. Inside the White House, aides went still. In Jasmine's office, Patrice whispered, "That's one more than I ever thought we'd get." But no one expected what happened next. At 6 a.m., Jasmine received a text from an unknown Phoenix number. "For what it's worth, I believe you. You didn't just speak for your district, you spoke for the country. I'll make that clear today." MRR. She handed the phone to Patrice. "Is this who I think it is?" Patrice read it, nodded. "Maxine Rell, Arizona, Republican, former prosecutor. That's real juice." A few hours later, the news broke. Rell breaks with GOP, challenges executive order. Read the AP alert. Cameras rolled as Senator Rell stood under the Arizona sun, hair tied back, voice steady. "I've reviewed the order. I've consulted 3 nonpartisan constitutional experts. I've watched the Congresswoman's statements. We don't see eye to eye on most issues, but I agree with her here. Voter suppression is un-American. Threatening someone with jail for stating that out loud crosses a line I will not cross." She didn't take questions. She didn't need to. By lunchtime, more Republicans joined quietly. "Senator Desmond, I have concerns about enforcement." Representative Mears, "We don't punish speech." Even a Fox panel host paused, saying, "Maybe we should have read it more carefully." Inside the West Wing, strategy meetings turned frantic. "Pivot to the economy," a staffer urged. "This isn't a protest anymore," said Gorski. "It's a narrative collapse." President Trump sat at the head of the table, silent. Then finally, "She wants a war? She'll get one." But later that night, something new surfaced. A journalist from the St. Paul Gazette dropped a story. Two federal insiders confirmed that Jasmine had been flagged by the DOJ before going public. One quote stood out: "She was being monitored." Pressure came from above. Suddenly, legal analysts drew comparisons to McCarthy-era tactics. Whistleblower protections were offered, and Senator Rell introduced a resolution to freeze the executive order pending full review. That evening, Jasmine walked through her old neighborhood. A neighbor called from his porch. "You all right, Miss Crockett?" She smiled. "Just getting some air. You sound like my sister used to." They called her loud. She called herself clear. Jasmine chuckled. But then came the next shock quietly. At 11:37 p.m., the DOJ posted a PDF. No press release, just a buried update, but someone found it. By midnight, it was everywhere. One sentence mattered most. "We acknowledge procedural lapses in the internal handling of communications surrounding the executive order, including pressure related to Representative Crockett." By morning, it was headline news: DOJ concedes missteps in Crockett case. Internal review confirms pressure. And in Dallas, Jasmine went live again. She wore a green blouse, no makeup, just her voice. She looked straight at the camera and said, "You saw it." The truth wasn't loud, but it was steady. She held up the same documents. "This order didn't change. What changed is how many of you paid attention." She paused. "We're not props in someone's play. We're citizens, and the Constitution wasn't written for decoration. It was written for moments just like this." Then she went quiet for 5 seconds. That silence hit harder than any soundbite. The clip spread. Teachers showed it in civics class. Pastors quoted her on Sunday. Students reenacted her speech in a youth film contest. Even conservative outlets shifted tone. The Frontline Ledger ran a headline, "When the Government Blinks, Jasmine Crockett and the Power of Relentless Clarity." In Washington, pressure mounted. 5 more senators backed the resolution. A congressional hearing was scheduled, and Jasmine, she hosted a town hall folding chairs, no media crew. A man in boots said, "I haven't voted in 15 years. Thought it didn't matter. But you made me think maybe it does. It always has." Jasmine told him, "They just made it easy to forget." A young girl added, "My dad says we're going to vote together next time." You're right." Jasmine smiled. "Guard it with everything you've got." The resolution passed, 51 to 49. Senator Rell said just 5 words, "Constitutional silence is still speech." And far away, in a kitchen in Ohio, a mother told her sons, "She's the one who told the president no." "No," the boy said. "She's the one who showed us how." Jasmine wasn't done. An email came. "Would you help draft a bipartisan election reform bill?" She didn't hesitate. "I know how to write law better than they do," she told Patrice. Weeks later, the voter integrity and accessibility framework was done. 36 pages. Early voting standards, redistricting transparency, real reform. Jasmine didn't hold a rally. She hosted a Zoom call with high schoolers. "Why didn't you sue the president?" one asked. "I didn't want a courtroom win," she said. "I wanted the country to learn. What if the bill fails? Then the next one won't." Back home, her district changed. Registration surged. Churches held open table discussions. People asked, "How do I make my voice count?" Jasmine just kept showing up. Groceries, barber shops, school gyms. When someone asked how she won, she laughed. "This isn't winning. This is maintenance." At the University of Wisconsin, her live stream became a case study. A law student said, "She wasn't dramatic, she was clear." "That's why it worked," the professor replied. "Because she understood the audience wasn't enemies, it was neighbors." And one day, at her old elementary school, a boy asked, "Are you famous now?" "No." Jasmine smiled. "I just didn't let people lie in peace." She handed out pocket constitutions. Inside, a handwritten note. "This belongs to you. Read it loud. Keep it close." That night, Patrice asked, "What if the bill fails?" "Then we write another, and another, until the ground stops shifting under us." She looked out the window. "I didn't come here to be a headline," she said. "I came to make sure the next girl doesn't have to livestream her defense just to keep her seat." And with that, the story, one that started with a threat and grew into a reckoning, became something else. Jasmine Crockett didn't just survive, she cleared a path for everyone watching. Because silence protects no one. Truth only grows when it's spoken. Ask checked.